Okay, so for simple and compound interest, back in the days when you guys were like little kids and you had extra money, you put it in your piggy bank. All right, now where do you put it? Bank. Why? So it gains interest. It doesn't just magically become more. Okay, so does it make a difference if you put it in CIBC or TD or Royal Bank? Is there a difference between which bank you choose? Right. Okay. So the different banks offer different rates. Right. Most of the big brand name banks, they would try to keep it the same, because if like let's say TD offers 5% and CIBC only offers 2%, nobody's gonna go to CIBC, right? So to be competitive, they have to have the same rate. They have to offer the same rate. They may do something like incentives, like for example, if you open a bank account with us, you will get a free iPad, right? RBC always use the iPad. Or TD, they say if you open a bank account with us and stay with us for a year, you'll get $300 bonus, something like that. So, do you know the bank? Do they do simple interest or compound interest? Compound, right? Compound. That there's a difference between simple and compound, and in a second, after we do the example, you'll see the difference between the two. Okay, so simple interest, this is the formula. Do you have to memorize this formula? Yes. Okay, so for the final exam, you do have to memorize these two interest formula. Okay, so make sure you memorize these. On the question itself, it will tell you if it's a simple interest question or a compound interest question. So you will know which one to use. Okay, there's no guessing or anything. You'll be told which one. 90% of the time, we do the compound one. Okay, so let's figure out what each of these letters represent. So I stands for interest. Okay, makes sense. P stands for the principal amount. So how much you invest at the beginning. R is the rate, the percent rate, and then T is the time. Okay. For compound interest, A represents the amount at the end. Okay. P, same thing, principal amount. So how much you invest at the beginning is the same P. I is the interest rate. But notice here, this uses R and this uses I, because with compound interest, you also have to consider how often it's paid out. Okay. And then N is the number of payouts. Okay. So let's try the example, and then it will be a lot easier to understand. So example 1, Lucy invested $3,000 in a savings plan that pays simple interest at 3.5%. She put that money in for 4 years. How much will she have at the end? All right, so which formula am I going to use? Simple, right? Because it says simple interest. So I equals PRT. Okay. How much was my principal? How much did I invest? Adihi? 3,000. By the way, I equals PRT means principal times rate times time. Okay, remember it's your timesing in between. What's the rate? Adam? 3.5%. So in any math, what do I have to do with that percentage? Yeah, you have to always divide it by 100 to change it to a decimal. So 0.035. Right? So remember, percentage, you have to change it to a decimal. So 0.035. And how long did you put that money in for? 4 years. So times it by 4. Do it on your calculator. 3,000 times 0.035 times 4. $420. Okay, so yay, does that mean after 4 years? Does that mean after 4 years I make I open up my bank account and I see $420 in there? Alright, so I go to the bank, ATM receipt, I see my balance is 420. Jenny. You also have to add your principal amount. Right. How can I invested 3,000. So how can my balance at the end be 420? It meant I lost money, right? What does the I represent again? Interest, right? So this is only the interest. Don't forget your principal amount. I want to know how much I have at the end. So principal plus my interest. So 3,000 plus the 420. So at the end, when I take a look at my balance after 4 years, I should see this in the account. I want you to stay for this part first. I'll be done in less than 10 minutes. It's not long. Okay. Example 2. So Daniel, on the other hand, he invested $2,000 in an account that earns interest at a rate of 2% compounded monthly. How much will he have at the end of 4 years? Okay, so notice this one. Daniel is investing in less money, and the interest rate is also less, but this one compounds monthly. So which formula should I use? Compound, because I see the word compound right here. All right, so I'm going to use this formula. A equals P plus 1 plus I to the n. Okay, so principal, how much did I invest? How much did Daniel invest? 2,000. Good. 1 plus I. What's my interest rate? 2%. But. Okay, so I know that 2% when I divide it is 0.02. 2% compounded monthly, which means instead of just paying you 2% at the end of the year, I'm getting paid every month. Okay, that 2%, so it doesn't mean that you get 2% every month. Like January I get 2%, February I get 2%. That would be way too good. Okay, that all these percentage that you see right here, these are annual rates. So this is how much they're paying you for the whole year. So if I want to find out how much is it for the month, what do I do to this rate? Divide it by 12. Okay, and I get 0.02 divided by 12. It's each month I'm getting 0.0016. Okay, I'm getting
dollars?
No, percent, the rate. Okay. Yeah, that's terrible. 0.0016. Oh, and also when you do the calculation, make sure you don't just round it to 0.0016. It's 6666666. Try to punch in as much decimal as you can on your calculator. Because if, let's say, you're investing $1 million, those trailing decimals can be $1,000 different. Okay? And then N. How long did I put in the investment for? 4 years. Now this is again the but part. But I'm paid every month. So how many months is that in total? 48. Right? So you have to times this by 12. So remember, for compound interest, for your I, you have to divide it by 12 if it's monthly. And in the end, you have to times it by 12. Right? People always miss this step. Right? And that's why we use different letters to represent. So we use I instead of R because we have to do this dividing by 12. And then we use N instead of T because we have to do this. Okay, so now we can use our calculator. Right? If your calculator shows you what you type in, then you can just simply like type in everything as you see. 1 plus 0.001666666, and then raised to the power of 48. Okay, like that. If your calculator does not show you what you type, then you have to do math yourself. So add first, and then do the exponent, and then multiply. And it should give you $2,166 and how much? What should I round this to? Adam? 43. Right. But at least you guys know to round to 2 decimal places because it's money. Good. Okay. So at the end of that 4 year, I see that I earned $2,166. Right. Did I make so much in interest? Did I make $2,000 worth of interest here? Oh, how much did I make in interest? Yeah. What happened to that 2,000? Yeah, that was yours. That was yours to begin with. Right? So interest in this case would be the amount take away your principal. So take away the $2,000 that was originally yours. That means in interest I earned $166.43. Okay. Do you think that's good money or bad money? Is that good or bad? Bad? Making $166 in 4 years? But then what did you do? Nothing. Yeah. So what's a way for you to make more? And all right. So to make more, so you said so in other words, put in more money. Okay. So in that 4 years, this is me putting in the money and not touching it for 4 years. So, but after a year, maybe you won the lottery and then you put in an extra $100. That would make a difference. It's hard to win the lottery. All right, or you find a bank that offers a higher interest rate. That could also make a bigger difference. All right, putting in the money for a longer time, that would make a difference. Okay, and also for your parents, they don't just put their money in the savings account because it earns peanuts. Okay, what do they do in that money? Okay, GIC, bonds. Alright, they make investment, stock market. Well, the stock market is a type of gambling. Okay, so but so in a stock market, you can make a lot of money, but you can also lose it all, right? So there is a risk. If you don't want to risk, then that's why people say GIC. GIC is like guaranteed income. Yeah, so the difference between a savings account and a GIC is GIC pays the much higher interest rate. They may pay you like 8%. Okay? But the catch to it is you cannot withdraw any money during that time. Yeah, but if it's the one that you just said you can take out anytime, then it's just like a savings account and they'll pay you very low interest. But for the high interest ones, let's say you put it in for 2 years, okay? They pay you 8% interest for that 2 years that you don't touch it. But what happens if you go in to your account, like After 1 year and 11 months and 20 days, you broke your leg and you need that money. And you go to the bank and withdraw that money. What happens to that interest? You get nothing. All right. So you have to make sure if you're putting in that money, you're not going to use it because otherwise you lose out on all the interest. Right. Um, so that example was compounded monthly, and you know that monthly is 12. That's why we divided by 12 and times by 12. They could also say compounded semi-annually. Okay, so which means it's 2. Okay. In other words, if I don't say compounded semi-annually and I said compounded every 6 months, means the same thing. Okay. Quarterly means 4. Bi-weekly 26. Weekly 52. And if the amount is compounded daily, you have to multiply and divide by 365. Okay. So Daniel wants to earn more interest. What are 2 things you could do to earn more money? So we just talked about that. We said, small deposits, deposit more money. Okay. More deposit more money in principal. So for example, your initial principal amount, or you can make more frequent deposit. Frequent deposits. Okay. Higher interest rate. Okay, these are all ways to make more money. Okay. Longer duration. Alright. EQ will love to ask these. So they'll say a question like, select the 2 options where you will make more money, for example. Okay. And then last example. Jeff, he wants to buy a new car priced at $33,000. He puts $4,000 as down payment and finance the rest with CIBC at 3.5% compounded monthly for 5 years. How much does he end up paying for the car at the end? Okay, so this is what we were talking about yesterday. If you don't have that 33,000, you can ask the bank for a loan. What does the down payment mean? Right? You'll see this word come up on the EQAO as well. Okay, yeah. So you down payment is like paying down your principal, the amount that you have to borrow. So instead of borrowing 33,000, you are only borrowing 29,000 because $4,000 you paid right off the bat. Okay. So we're gonna use, since I see the word compounded, I'm gonna use the this formula. Right? So as we said, principal, because of that down payment, is just 29,000. Right? And then 1 plus. So how do I calculate I again? I represents the interest rate. So Badar, how many percent? 0.035. 0.035. But what do I have to do with this percentage? You have to divide by 12 because it's monthly. Right? And I get 0.035 divided by 12, 0.002916. Okay. And then N? How long? How long am I? 5 years. Okay. And I have to times 12. So that's 60 payments in total. Okay, so put in those numbers, 0.002916 and to the exponent 60. Okay, so again, putting all in the calculator at once. 0.002916 to the exponent 60. Alright, that means the car is now worth this. Okay, so is that how much the car is worth? Like, is that the total amount of money I paid for the car? The car was originally 33,000, and I just paid 1,500 extra. Is that right? No. Armin, what do you think? With the principal of 29,000. Yeah. So what did you pay upfront? I paid $4,000 upfront. So I actually have to add back that $4,000. So that means, so that means this car that was originally 33,000, it's actually 38,500. This is how much I paid overall. Okay. So you paid an extra 5,500 over that 5 years. Is that a good deal or bad deal? What do you think? Good deal. Good deal? What do you think? So the car was originally just 33,000, but I had to pay an extra 5,500 because I didn't have the money. All right. Well, if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. What can you do, right? And in reality, the car company charged you more than that 3.5%, so you end up actually paying much more. Right. So, but what's the difference between example 2 and example 3? Both are calculating interest, but one is in a savings account, and the other one, what's happening here? You're buying a car, so you're borrowing money, right? So if you're borrowing money, how can you reduce your overall cost then? What are 3 things you can do to reduce your overall cost? Sorry, Lucas? Right, increase the down payment. So if you increase down payment, like paying it down upfront, then you pay less interest. All right. What's another way? So in other words, if you look at this one right here, you're basically doing the opposite. Because this one you are saving money, so you want higher interest rate. But here, if you're borrowing money, you want lower interest rate. In lower interest rate. And also maybe pay more often. All right, so shorter term. Okay. So you have to remember the difference between are you saving money or are you borrowing money? Okay. So for your homework today, up to page 18. So these ones right here. 18. 17 and 18. All right, so page 17 and 18. Thank you. All right, so what are you ones for homework? Page 18. Don't fall behind. Up to page 18.